What's up, Leafs fans, and welcome back to Leafs Digest. Last episode, we broke down Zach Hyman, and if we thought the Leafs need to re-sign Zach Hyman, if we thought he was an integral piece of the Leafs team and what they mean going forward, what they represent. And now we're back actually breaking down another thing about Zach Hyman here. Rumor comes out today. Darren Dreger reports, sources say the Maple Leafs have granted Zach Hyman's agent, Todd Reynolds, permission to speak with other NHL clubs to investigate trading his rights. So, right off the bat here, this is kind of big news in terms of the fact that this is a very telling sign that the Leafs are leaning towards moving Hyman moving towards the free agent market and at least testing the waters there. I think that is like a very big thing from the Leafs standpoint, though, because this gives them the opportunity, and now everyone can say, oh, you're not allowed to talk to other teams until July 1 or whatever that random date may be this year. But like there's that talking period before free agency, and oh, you're not allowed to talk, but everyone knows agents are going to talk. This is just a very open, out in the public way of the Leafs saying, go find out what you're worth. We're going to hear everything about what you're worth. Your agent's going to come back here and tell us what you're worth. We know, we have an idea of what other teams want to pay you at this current moment in time. But now this is just a legal, air quote, legal, public way of you going out and finding your value. And like people can sit here and la-di-da about how, oh, they're just giving Hyman his respect. And if he wants his 8 years, he can get his 8 years. The Leafs don't really care about that. They can offer him 8 years, and this just gives them an opportunity to find out what other teams in the open market are going to be willing to pay.
Yeah, and it's a measuring stick move.
Yeah.
I think the Leafs are definitely down to part ways if it comes to a price situation that they're not willing to meet, like 5.5, maybe to 6 for the 8 years. At that point, they're definitely comfortable moving on and trying their hand in free agency. And who could blame them? He's a part of the top line, like we were saying last time, that's been stifled in the playoffs. That's taken a lot of blame. I've been calling Zach Hyman an in-betweener. He's not a great scorer, setup guy. I mean, his stats will tell you one thing, but realistically, we know he's not a polished skill player, and he's not a polished, you know what, he is a good grinder, but to say he goes out there and he's like a world-class grinder, I don't think so. I think he falls right in the middle there, and sometimes it's troubling. So I don't think I want to give him that kind of money, and to go out and let him go talk to other teams, that won't hurt us right now. I think we're in a really, if he wants more than we can give him, then that's fine. If he wants to stay for cheap, that's okay. I don't think we're too bent about Hyman right now.
No, I agree. And I think that the other thing too here, which is like a very small piece of the puzzle, but it is actually pretty impactful, especially when it comes down to the Leafs and their current standpoint, is one of the biggest knocks on them after, in terms of their play. I mean, there was a lot of knocks in terms of their play, but one of the biggest knocks in terms of the moves that were made heading into this postseason was sacrificing draft picks. And everyone's been looking, saying, oh wow, we don't have draft picks this draft, next draft, the next 3 drafts, whatever the case may be, we're short on draft picks. Having an opportunity to move a guy like this is just an opportunity to replenish a couple picks here and there, because part of the problem that comes with Zach Hyman and the other team that may be interested in signing him, let's say he does choose to move on, is that if Team A is going to sign Hyman and their kicker and their opportunity to put them above and beyond the other teams that are out there on the free agent market is that 8th year that they're going to throw in there, they only have until July. Man, I wish I knew the free agency date off the top of my head right now, but they only have until the free agency deadline to give that 8th year, because they have to make a trade with the Leafs, because until that point, the Leafs are the only team that can offer 8 years. Once the free agent day hits, every single team, even the Leafs, can only offer him 7 years. So it forces the hand of another team who may be out there saying, oh, we can offer you an 8th year and this is the best we can do, because it can just give an opportunity for the Leafs to replenish some of those draft picks. And it's something that other teams will be willing to give up, because nobody's going to give up like a 1st-round pick or some player in return. And I don't think the Leafs are going to be wanting a player. They're going to be wanting to shed salary cap if Hyman is out the door. They don't want to retain something like that. But like you look at Kevin Hayes being moved from last year, and it was like something right before or 2 years ago, it was right before the free agency. It was like a 2nd round pick the Flyers parted ways with, And it's just an easy thing for them to do, to hand it off to Winnipeg, just for a player that they know they're going to re-sign, and Winnipeg takes back some asset. I think this gives the Leafs that kind of opportunity here.
It does for sure. And you think about the opportunity to get some picks back into the organization, which we desperately need. We were super willing to go hand them out because not a lot of people know about the upcoming draft with COVID essentially canning all junior hockey. So they were like, whatever, these are just magic beans. Like, who knows? Maybe it'll turn into something, maybe it won't.
Yeah.
So in a contention year, I get why we did it, but thinking down the road, we got to have some longevity to this thing. And if we keep Hyman in the organization and don't get any picks back for him, we're looking at a situation where we have almost a $30 million first line.
Yeah.
And the first line was the issue in the playoffs. And to run it back with them locked up at 30 million collectively, it's insanity. And I'm not trying to slander Hyman. Like, I appreciate what he does a ton. He adds that really good cultural aspect to the team where it's a work ethic. It's the willingness to fight, to hit, to score. He does a little bit of it all. But at this point, I want a bit of a top-down shakeup. Not ready to part with Marner's. Certainly not ready to part with Matthews. Mm-hmm. So that singles out Hyman, the guy up for contract. And right after we lose all of our draft picks, it does seem like it's the perfect opportunity to kind of, add through subtracting, getting draft picks, and then mixing up that first line again, because clearly they need it.
That's actually a very, very good point that you brought up there about the overall cap hit of that first line if they re-sign him at the value that he appears to be looking for on the market. Because if he goes out and attains anywhere between $5.5 to $6 million, let's assume 5.5, the lower end of those two, Matthews and Marner are kicking in around 23 mil combined between the two of them. You throw in 5.5 on top of that, and your first line is a 29 ballpark $1 million cap hit. Like, everyone's already kicking on these guys, on the Leafs management, for signing the four Hyman Nylander, Tavares, Marner, Matthews for the cap hit that they're rolling in at. Imagine just the first line alone, and Zach Hyman being one of those three guys, and no slight of Zach Hyman, but really like Tavares, Nylander, Marner, Matthews. It's tough that we have those guys in our cap hit or in our cap structure at the hits that they are. But if you look at it and say, wow, Zach Hyman with those two guys pulls in and brings it up to $30 million, we have much, much bigger problems than we did going into this.
Big problems. And who in the fan base right now, all sentimental feelings for Zach Hyman aside, who's saying, let's go spend 30 million on the top line to keep the band together? Mm-hmm. No one in the right mind should be saying that. And William Nylander, in my opinion, is a really good value contract at this point.
Agreed.
But when you're thinking he's making 6.9, and then you kind of get into that ballpark, if he gets 5.5 or 6, I'm talking about Hyman. Mm-hmm. It's just clear they're not the same caliber of player. So if I'm using that as some sort of like market value gauge of what a value contract's going to look like on our team, like, he just doesn't fit it. He's not worth it, in my opinion. I know some people will come at me for that, but hey, man, we haven't got out of the first round in forever. I'm willing to try something different. And unfortunately, the different move is not going to come with Marner or Matthews. Both those, well, Marner would be the guy that would go first, but he deserves another kick at the can. He's too good to just let go. Hyman, on the other hand, I think that you could find someone with a similar drive, more offensive upside, and it would help the first line more, and on a way better rate too.
So, do you think that they have to just move on from Hyman regardless, or do you think it would only be if it's at that high of a cap hit? Like, if they could get him for $5 million or less, and I think $5 million is kind of on the high end, to be honest, but like, let's say $5 million is what they can get him at for 6-7 years, or even if he goes in at, let's say he goes in at like 4.75 for 8 years, and he like locks him in at that. Would you be okay with that, or would you rather they just move on from him and try to see what else we can acquire here and for some sort of shakeup?
We got to move on from the idea of him being on the first line, in my opinion. So like, just underneath 5 million, I could live with that, but I just don't want to have it on the first line anymore. Maybe you could start off the season like that, but I think that he's not the answer on the first line. They underperformed big time. Hyman has been really important to that group before, but Matthews is at the point where I think his puck retrieval has gotten so good
Yeah.
and his stick's amazing. Like we don't need someone to go out there. And he's not the ultimate puck retrieval guy, Hyman. Like he is good at what he does, but he's not elite. Like Matthews, in my opinion, you send Matthews and Hyman into the corner to go get the puck. Philly, who comes out with it?
Yeah. I agree. Like Matthews, his puck retrieval game has significantly increased. He's one of the
And
top
then,
takeaway guys in the NHL at this point.
yeah, he is. He reminds me of Mark Stone in that way. And then if you were to go ahead and then put another guy on the line who's maybe not as gritty as Hyman, but a slightly more skilled player who doesn't mind getting physical, I think that's a net positive, especially when you consider the defensive progression of Matthews and hopefully Marner pretty soon. Like, I just don't think that Hyman is as essential as everyone thinks. I think he overachieved, which is why it's just been magnified, right? We've amplified his achievements because we had a lower bar for him. We're always blown away by the fact that he was on the first line. He
Mhm.
stat pads with empty nets. I didn't want to bring it up, but I'm saying it. Man, I don't know. I think that he could be a really useful player to any team. On the Leafs, I think he's useful maybe in the second or third line. Third line might be a little bit low, but a depth forward more than a front line piece. I think we got to move on from the idea of him as a first liner in Toronto.
Yeah, I honestly find it very hard to disagree with what you're saying there. I think that like as long as you can get him in below 5 million at $5 million or less, whatever the term may be, I think that you do it and you bring him back. But I think you're right that he kind of has to move on from being the first line guy. I don't think he should be the guy that plays with Matthews and Marner. I don't think that they should need that kind of guy anymore. And not to say that Tavares and Nylander do need that kind of guy, but I think he fits better with them. And not from like a production standpoint, but just from like a chemistry and overall like organic makeup of that line. I think that he's more suited to play with those two guys. And I think that Matthews and Marner almost just need someone more skilled than Hyman to play on that line. I don't think it has to be the most skilled player in the world, and it doesn't have to be the most physical player in the world, but it has to be someone who has more skill than Hyman, because part of the problem with that they ran into with Hyman being on that line is that Hyman loves to be the guy to shoot the puck when he's like driving the net or things like that. Whereas if you can get a guy who can drive the net and play a little bit physical, but is also that awareness of like, when I'm going to shoot the puck, like I'm probably going to score here, or I'm going like backdoor to Matthews because I see that guy. Whereas like Hyman didn't always see that guy. And then he doesn't always have the ability to score on those chances. So he would kind of have those give and takes. So like he's winning the battles, but he can't score the goals. Now we're just turning over pucks and wasting away chances. If they can bring a guy in who's a little bit more skilled to contribute to that line, I think it plays right into what you're saying. If Matthews goes out there, retrieves pucks, he can create his own chances completely. He doesn't need Marner to create the chances. It's nice to have Marner to create the chances. Marner continues his role in that line, creating chances for everybody. He can continue to become more of an option as a scorer. And then if you have a guy on the other end who can score a lot and like continue to contribute to the play, whether it be through assists or physicality, I think that is the ideal situation there.
Yeah, I think so too. And even scratch the physical side of it a slight bit. Like ideally, we'd want it there. But if we're matching lines properly, good NHL teams don't always have bruisers on the first line. Like even Boston's first line. Boston's a really tough team, but their first line's not going to go run over many people. I know Bergeron's tough. Pasternak and Marchand are skill players. It's one of those things like you don't really need a maniac on your first line. Like you should be prioritizing skill at the top of your lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And if Hyman's not fitting that mold, then I think you do find a little bit more skill, even if you take away a slight bit of grit.
Yeah.
I know we got a whole list of guys that we think could slot in there, but we'll go over that in another pod. Question I wanted to ask you. I'm not sure if this is a valid point, but when it comes to the Seattle expansion draft, is there any world where locking up Hyman would give us leverage to make a deal with Seattle to protect players by sending them Hyman, maybe getting picks back? Because if we can lock up Hyman to a decent contract and we're still thinking, you know what, we're in this weird position where maybe we can just get better without him on the roster. He's a really attractive player right now. Like his value is probably higher than it's ever going to be. So could you use him as a leverage piece he's culture, right? Like sending him to a brand new organization would be really good for them. Do you think you could use him as a leveraging piece to protect players from Seattle and potentially even get some of their picks back?
Yes, I do. I think that this also plays into what Dreger reported today in that he's allowed to talk to other teams because Seattle would be one of those teams where if they traded picks for him, they can sign him to the 8 years because he would technically be part of Seattle's property before the free agency. He could sign right now for an 8-year contract with Seattle. They could lock him down and they could send picks back to the Leafs. This could also give the Leafs the opportunity to say, okay, instead of giving us a second round pick, give us a 6th round pick and take Travis Dermott because we don't want Travis Dermott. I'm just throwing that out there as a hypothetical. I'm not saying that we've heard anything that they don't want Travis Dermott, just for the sake of the conversation. Then the Leafs can force the hand of Seattle and say, like, we'll give you Hyman so that you can sign him for 8 years, but you got to take Dermott in the expansion draft, or you got to take Pierre Engvall in the expansion draft. And I think you're right. I think that does open that opportunity. And I think that again plays into what Dreger reported today. And just in terms of like, it just allows the Leafs to see what the open market is out there for him in terms of what the other teams may sign him for. Maybe he goes out there and it's nothing near what anybody thought he was going to get. Maybe Hyman goes out there and thinks he's going to get 5.5, and every single team is like, it's a flat cap. We're getting the exact same cap that we had last year. We can't pay you anymore, man. And then the Leafs come back and say, you know where you can get here. You know what the team is that we have here. Why would you go somewhere else to make the exact same amount of money in an uncertain circumstance when you can just come back here and do that? And I think that this kind of just gives them a little bit of grace period before the free agency hits to sign him to that 8-year contract, because I think he does want 8 years wherever he's going to go. So, yeah, but I do think that this does open that opportunity up for Seattle.
Yeah, and just even in the greater scope of things too, when we re-sign him, he is sort of at the top of his value. But the thing is, I'm thinking if he resigns with the Leafs, it probably means he did it on a slight discount from his market value. And if he's doing that, do you think he's going to try to push for a no trade clause put into the contract?
Yeah, probably. I would assume, yeah.
So that would ruin him as like a tradable asset, because part of me is thinking, okay, maybe we do take him at like a 4.8,
Yeah.
try to roll him with that front, with that top line a little bit, keep his numbers juiced up for the first half of the season, and then potentially deal him. But if we're retaining him, it probably means we did it at a discount. And if we did it at a discount, that probably means that we got a no trade clause involved in the contract now.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think that would come in there. I would probably have to look to figure out what kind of no move clauses they've incorporated in the guys that Dubas has signed since he's been the GM. But like, I mean, I'd be pretty certain that Marner, Matthews have no move clauses. I think Nylander has a no move until like his final year or something like that. Like, there's no way Tavares doesn't have a no move. I don't know for sure, but like I would bet you TJ Brody has some kind of no move. Like, even if these guys have not modified no move lists, I would think that these bigger pieces would have some extent of one, and I think Hyman would fit into one of those guys who would get one.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
I want to look into the no trade clause as well, because I remember we were trying to acquire TJ Brody earlier in his career, and Nazem Kadri had the no trade clause, and he shot that down. And I wasn't sure if it was like you have a certain amount of trades that you can veto, or if it's like a certain amount of time that you're allowed to veto within.
there's two that I can think of off the top of my head. The one is a full no move. You just never have to waive your no move. The other one is a modified or like a partial, where you submit a list of teams that you will not be traded to. So like you could submit a list of 10 teams and be like, I don't want to go to Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg, et cetera, up to 10 teams. And then like your team has the opportunity to trade you to 20 other teams because you've submitted a list of 10. And like you could be traded to any one of those teams, but if you get an opportunity to go to one of those 10 teams that are on your partial no trade, then that's when it comes to the point of, okay, no, I'll waive for that team. Like I believe Duncan Keith had a full no move, and for him to go to Edmonton, he had to waive his no move to be moved there. And that was obviously something he was willing to do because it was on his list of teams that like I would be willing to go to. So yeah, that's kind of like how that would go down. I'm pretty sure that there's no restriction on like I have this many trades I can veto. I think Nazem Kadri in his case, he was just willing to go to Colorado over Calgary. And then I don't think there's like a time limit on how it works. I think you can just like that's not for me, and you're you're out of there, and you just say no to the trade. But yeah,
Slight bit of a gentleman's agreement.
yeah, exactly. But this is a pretty good one. I'm breaking down Zach Hyman and kind of what the news means today that Darren Dreger broke about Zach Hyman and how the Leafs have granted him permission, him and his agent, to talk to other teams, which essentially, like as we've said on here, all it would really do is allow other teams the opportunity to sign him for that 8th year, which more than anything here just gives the Leafs some sort of opportunity to figure out what the open market value is and retain assets if he does decide to go somewhere for that 8th year. It does seem, especially with this news, that an 8th year is very important to him. It seems like something that he's searching for out there. And so the Leafs doing this, it's clearly like, okay, you're looking for that 8th year wherever you're going to want to go. If it's that important to you and a team is going to want to lock you up for that 8th year, we can get some sort of assets back here without having to just let you walk for free. Maybe that be draft picks. Maybe that goes to Seattle. They could force the hand of somebody. But Leafs fans, I don't think we need to panic here. I don't think this is the end of the world. I don't think this means Zach Hyman wants out of Toronto. I don't think it means he hates playing in Toronto. I think this is him just taking his opportunity as a big this is like he's a big fish right now. Like he is a big free agent, whether you like it or not. He's a guy who can finally go out there and look for his first payday as a first real payday as a pro. Someone who can go out there, hit the open market and get, I want 8 years at $6 million. And some team might be willing to pay that. And it's completely fair for him to go out there and do that. So I don't think we should feel slighted. I don't think we should feel hurt or backstabbed by this. And I also don't think that we should feel hurt by Leafs management for allowing him to go and do this. I think this is a smart move by both parties involved. I don't think anyone should be to blame or be upset with here. I think this is a good move for both sides. And I'm kind of excited to see how this pans out over the next little while. So Leafs fans, continue to come back to our channel, subscribe, like, comment if you like our stuff, if you like what's going on. Make sure you keep checking out our page because we're going to have another couple videos coming out over the next week or so, breaking down free agents that we think we should acquire, more rumors, stuff from Darren Dreger. This guy seems to be all over the Leafs and all over the rumor mill that comes out of there. Anything to do with the expansion draft, as lists are going to be due next Friday, this Friday, actually, tomorrow, and we're only a week away from the expansion draft, so things are getting pretty exciting. A week from tomorrow, there's going to be a new NHL franchise. The Leafs are going to have lost one more player at least, so things are going to get pretty exciting as the next week rolls on, so stay tuned for that. But guys, let's not panic here. Let's stay true to the Leafs, true to our fandom. Let's not go anywhere because I think Kyle Dubas, Brendan Shanahan are going to turn this thing around. So guys, keep believing, and we'll see you next time.
Signing off.